went around from found different families that had photo collections, and he would borrow them and take pictures and put them on a slide. And he put together this whole thing with the slideshow. And then I came along and did it in reverse. Took the slides and digitized them. So it's dedicated to him. Oh, that is Merrimack. Originally, there was a cabin in like 1846. A guy named Brown who started a tavern, and that figures right in Wisconsin. He started a tavern. Anyhow, the story is he just kind of disappeared one day. Went out in the woods and never came back. And then a guy named Chester Matson came along and kind of took over. In the late 1840s, he got the charter for the first ferry. So that's kind of what it looks like now. So anyhow, we should take a moment to look at this map. So Merrimack's up here. Okee's down here. The railroad has been put through. The railroad went through in 1871, 1872. But you see how Rowan Creek, before the dam, Rowan Creek comes way over here from the east, and it meets up with Spring Creek, probably right around where Mortar's place is. And so after the Spring Creek left Gristmill and Okee, it followed that route, and they combined, and then there was a fair amount of water there. But the first ferry only had to go from Merrimack right over to this point of land here. There was still quite a bit of land and a lot of big trees. They'll just help you get your bearings and stuff. It's kind of the stuff we're looking at. So that would have been the train yard in Merrimack. 1880 maybe. So Merrimack was founded officially in 1865, I believe, and it had the reason that it was spelled with a K is the people that came here were from New England. And there's a very famous Merrimack River in New Hampshire. So they looked at the Wisconsin and thought, well, it looks just like home, and they decided to call it Merrimack. The K got dropped in 1950. Another side note, if you heard the Battle of the Monitor and the Merrimack, famous ironclad battle, that's the same Merrimack. They named that ship after that river. Only it was Union at the time. They abandoned it, the Confederates got it, and they renamed it the Virginia. So that was, like I said, the railroad charter got put through in 1870, and by 1872 they had a full running railroad from Madison all the way to Elroy, which is pretty incredible for 2 years, I think. Plus they built that's pretty amazing trestle. They built this high part here because there was a lot of barge traffic and riverboat traffic on the river at the time, and so they thought we got to leave a space for like ships with tall masts or whatever to go through. That's a lumber scow, they called them. It's just a big barge filled with cut logs. And if you notice, it's not going through where it's supposed to be going. And I think the reason for that is there had to be all kinds of problems with low water at different times of the year, and there probably just wasn't enough water under that center span, so they picked this one. And then at some point, not too far, I think that original trestle only lasted maybe 3 or 4 years before they decided they needed something different, and they went about building the one that's currently there, although now it's got kind of a makeover. But they put in a turnstile or a swivel draw, they called it. And that was still there. The last time I went across the ferry, I don't know if it was, you can maybe still make it out, but part of the rebuilding was they took that out. And then that would, you can also look at how close the shoreline is. So the original ferry only had to go about half the distance the one that goes now, maybe 400 yards maybe.
What powered the swivel?
I imagine guys with cranks, just mechanically, just cranking away at it. So these are the two main steamers that worked on the river from like Prairie du Chien up to the Dells. They had to stop at the Dells because there was a rapids there. They couldn't get any farther. But here, the swivel is swung open, and you see one of the boats is waiting to go through. I looked at this picture with Paul Knudsen, and he was trying to figure out why are all these people up here watching this? Is this like maybe the first time that this thing actually operated, and they were all there just to check it out, or? I got that picture from Paul Knudsen.
Yeah.
So there they are. That's the two main river boats tied up at the in Prairie du Sac. Kind of if you go to Prairie du Sac where the Eagle observation deck is, right below down there was where the wharfs were. And maybe you can't see it very well, but that's Wallersheim up in the corner up there.
Oh, yeah.
That little village was called Clifton. There's a couple buildings left, but not much.
How far upriver did the ferry boats go?
I think they would have got up to the Dells, and that was it.
Was it strictly for passengers, just
Oh, what, the boats?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it was like cargo. I
Oh.
mean, I imagine a lot of it was probably both, some passengers. The railroad was extremely busy from about, they made a double track in 1890. The original track, like I said, 1872. The second track got put in the 1890s, early 1890s. It became the main route between Chicago and Twin Cities for the Northwestern. So it was like really super busy. It was double track all the way except for the Merrimack Trestle where it all went down to one. So they had to have guys at both ends making sure that trains didn't run into each other and making sure once they crossed the trestle they got on the right track as they were leaving. So that was the one in Merrimack, and that's the one in Okee. And there was two trains an hour in its heyday, so it was super busy. That got changed around 1911. Northwestern built a road from Milwaukee that went north of the Wisconsin River Valley. And that became their main run to Twin Cities, was through Milwaukee. That is from the Merrimack side. And from the Okee side, that Pleasant View Park, that area before the dam, there was a brickyard there. One of my dad's uncles ran that brickyard. It was like some of the clay in the riverbanks was like great for making bricks, and it's a kind of a yellowish cream colored brick. You might see some buildings in Lodi that are made with that, but those bricks got shipped all over. And Northwestern even made a little spur line down to the brickyards to make it easier to get them on the trains. That's one my dad took probably in the 60s. And that one I took about, I don't know, 10 years ago maybe. But I'm gonna have to go back. Like all my now pictures are already 10 years old, so it's like people think nothing ever changes, but once you start doing this, you find out stuff's changing all the time. So that was Charles Matson's first ferry. That began operation in 1848, and here it is. This is after the trestle, so it's maybe 30 years later, and they're still running it. Basically, it was, you can't see this picture. From what I read, they suspended a rope, a 3-inch manila rope covered with tar to keep it kind of waterproof. And they ran that across, there were towers on each end. There had to be guys there if a boat tried to get through and couldn't make it, they would have to, like a winch on that cable to get it to go higher up so they could get under it.
How did they move the ferry?
That was you see those guys there with the poles?
Yeah.
They're pushing it. Mm. And it's on a cable, but it made it at a 45-degree angle so that in one direction the current would take it, and those guys probably didn't have to do much work, but coming back the other way, they probably had to work their butts off to push it against the current. And they did it at an angle because you didn't want to be broadside. Anybody that knows anything about boats, don't want to be broadside to the current, so you want to either be heading straight into it or with it. It looks like the same ferry, only they've added a motor to it. There was a water wheel. I still can't figure out how that worked, but there was a steel cable that was attached to it, and then there was a water wheel. That's the same. My dad is that guy right there. He said he was maybe 14 when they took that picture. And they went up, they had relatives in Baraboo, so they'd go to Baraboo a lot. And he said he had one aunt who was like extremely overweight. And it was kind of mean, but they said they'd have to leave her at the bottom and take everybody else up to the top of the bluff and then go back down and pick her up. Because otherwise the truck wouldn't make it.
You always carry your water.
This is a really good picture of where the original Merrimack landing was. There's a park there now. And that's the remains of the old landing. It shows you a relation to the trestle. And that is the water wheel, that thing. At first when I saw that, I thought that must just be a flywheel for the engine or something. But apparently that was a water wheel, and that's how it propelled itself across the river. There's kind of a picture of it, not a real good picture, but it shows these little, how that thing would grab water as it was rotating. Yeah, I don't know if we're to Colsack yet, but we're getting close. In 1924, the state took it over. They named it Colsack for Columbia Sauk, kind of mashed the two counties together. I remember riding on this one. That's probably from a postcard. So then in the early 60s, they decided they needed a bigger one. That Colsack one only took 6 cars. So there could probably be, imagine if it was the one they have now only carried 6 cars, the lineup would be, they're back to mortars trying to get on it. But 77,000, imagine that. I mean, there's guys that spend that much for their fishing boats now. And yeah, that and their pickup. So they got 70 into the boat and another 70 in the pickup. That's the launching in 1963. It's what my dad took. It's just a classic picture of the Colsack 2 on Merrimack side. I think I took that one from Goose Egg when you could still hike up on Goose Egg. That's the one that's there now. That was 2003, I think. And my dad was there at the christening. He was like one of the honored guests because he'd been to all 3 of them. He remembered the one in 1924 and then 63 and then this one. They put it together and then that thing called Big Red just kind of shoved it straight into the water. So if you remember back to that postcard, I kind of lined it up with that, so you can see the hills in the distance. Pretty much the same spot. This is the mortar house, and that's still there. That shows, this is after they built the dam. The dam was completed in 1914, and then the water started slowly backing up. And like we showed before, there was so much land and woods and everything out there. So the Spring Creek would have been right along the side here, and Wisconsin's way over there, and this was all like land. Then that first winter after it froze up, a bunch of people went out and they slowly started cutting down all those trees for firewood, which of course left all the stumps. Anybody that goes boating out there.
Yep.
Still there.
The stumps are still there, and the thing is about wood, it just doesn't rot away in water like you think it would. It actually preserves it. I'll go back. Right there, that shed with the sloped roof. There's that shed right there. So this was originally called Matt's Ferry Road from Chester Matson. Everybody called him Matt. And he had gotten a charter to make a stagecoach line from Madison out to West Point. And that was part of that stagecoach line. And that's why he wanted a ferry, because he thought, I get people that far, if I can get them across, I should try to get them across the other side. Because Baraboo by then was kind of a big deal. Then it's slowly, there it is, gravel. And then he took this is the Delmore Nursery signs right there. That's when it had the big humps in it. Kids would go as fast as they could, go flying over all those humps.
Not that you ever did.
I never did that. Then they flattened it out eventually. Took all the fun out of it. This would have been, the railroad would have assigned a section crew for I don't know how long exactly the section was, but then that was just their full-time job to keep maintaining that. And you can see how important that would have been if they were running 2 trains an hour, but it'd take a lot of maintenance to make sure they didn't have any problems. My dad took this supposedly of that same section we just looked at. And this, I really love this. The Banish family had some glass plate negatives, which they're really something. The detail on them is amazing. This is like, prior to World War I, photography was still using glass plate negatives. So these had to be from the 1890s to 1910 era. And that was pretty much, they called that the American, that locomotive at 440. That was pretty much the standard throughout the country for freight. And if you look, you'll see how the bridge and the guys are pretty much in focus. The train is blurry, probably just because of the shutter speed of the camera that he was using. Maybe a quarter of a second. Also, you notice it's before the dam, because there's land. This is all high and dry up in here. I took down another one like 10 years ago, probably. It's hard to see now. I just drove by it the other day and you can barely see it. There's so much shrubs and bushes and stuff that are covering it up.
Is that across from Benish's?
Yeah. Yeah, it's right by the Benish farm there, yeah.
Yeah, right over here.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know, some of you might remember the Great Train Wreck, 1968. Which I don't know if they ever determined what caused it. I heard a rumor it was Roy Rapp and Dennis Fisk put some stuff on the tracks. I don't know.
You heard a rumor of Roy Rapp?
Oh, wow.
Roy Rapp and Dennis Fisk is what the rumor I always heard. They were like a couple of hellions, Okee hellions.
And how did they pull it off?
So there is the cleanup process, which took quite a while. That occurred. I was taking driver's ed with Joe Parr at the time, and he would keep me. Every driving lesson, we'd drive out to Okee to see how they were doing with the train wreck. Oops, jumped one. There's probably the height of the railroad. I know that my dad said that his sisters would get on the train to go to Lodi to high school, and they would just come driving back after school.
Where was the depot out here?
I'll show you.
Foundation's still there.
Yeah. And at some point they moved the other side. Now the store must be back there, and that's a stockyard. I vaguely remember when that stockyard was still there. But there it is now. The Shamrock. Yeah, the old Shamrock would be kind of where Tim is sitting right there. So this here's classic aerial view of an early Okee. There's the mill. The school we're sitting in is right there. My dad's family had owned land here on this point. His grandfather started the mill in 1874, I think. You see how the Spring Creek is dammed up. Maybe that's the dam there, I'm not really sure. But then after it left the dam, it just went straight out again at Spring Creek. And went out and met up with Rowan Creek. That's when I went up on Tim's Hill to take that. So you can't really see it. Somebody built a house to cover up the school, but the school's right there. The mill would have been right there.
Can you please go back one slide just for a second? So where's
on the other
the
side.
mill?
The big white.
That big white building, that was a mill.
And when did that come down?
After the dam, so by 1915 roughly it was gone, 1914. They quit using it kind of before that, because I have pictures, it looks pretty like deserted, like it hadn't been used for a while. And this must be from an airplane. So the school is in these trees here somewhere.
In the top tower of the mill, there was a huge circular window. When they tore down the mill, it went over to the Addo Farm. And then the Addo Farm donated it to the Lodi Valley Historical Society, and it's in the museum right now.
Another airplane shot, and then I got one with my cousin Jerry Carncross, took me up in an airplane, I got this one. This is maybe 2011, because Lucky's isn't there yet. It's still got the old motel.
The Bridge Motel.
That's a good picture of the dam. So the water, the mill worked different. It didn't have a regular water wheel like over at Hyde or one of those mills. The water got funneled around to the side and then fed in through the top, and then it wound. The gravity pulled the water down, and that's what turned the wheel inside the building. So it would have been roughly from there, extending over to there. This is a postcard, probably trying to draw Illinois people to come up here to fish, I suppose. We called it Spring Lake before it became Okee Bay. It definitely gets lots of pressure fishing. I like that picture.
You got one?
Fishing below the dam, it never goes out of style. This building was a ice house. Back in the winter, they would cut big, huge blocks of ice and then pull them up this ramp up into here, cover the ice with sawdust, or I don't know what exactly they used. I think it was probably sawdust. And then they'd have ice for the summer. But you can see the relationship between the dam and the mill. And it has to be a period of really low water here. It doesn't look like much is going on. So, yes, like I was saying, the water came in back here and then it wound down through a bunch of water wheels and gears and whatever, and then it emptied out down at the bottom. Oh, the window, yeah. There's a window up there. This was 1911 flood. This I saw a history of the Parizette Dam, and they were well underway building the dam, and they wanted to have it done by 1912 or 13, I think. This flood kind of screwed everything up, did a lot of damage, and they had to start over a lot of different sections of the dam. So the dam didn't get finished until 1914. This shows how the Spring Creek there as it's leaving, there's like basically not much there. And you see all that, it looks like like a state park or something out there. All that land between the Wisconsin River and Spring Creek would have been pretty heavily forested. This is my dad's oldest sister, Marion. So this would be 1914 as the water was starting to back up. And then before they tore down the mill. But I don't know, it's kind of hard to see. There's a little current break right there. That shows you right where the foundation for the mill was. And I don't know, to me the bridge has always kind of been the centerpiece of Okee. This was some kind of an event that was going on. I have no idea what. I do remember these minnow storage tanks as a kid. I always thought it was hoot to go back there and look at all the minnows in those tanks. That's kind of how it looks now. Probably not though, like I said, 10 years ago. I like this one. It kind of shows this land up in here is like totally undeveloped. So that the road out to the Okee Lodge would have been back up in there.
It's Rat Road.
Rat Road. Yeah, Rat Road.
Not the drain.
Yeah.
There by that hill. It's Usher still.
It's a start.
And this, now you can see there's houses all over there now. Along there. This is looking the other way. The bridge is right there. It's kind of hard to see. This building here is coming up in a couple pictures. This was like one of the earlier buildings on that site where Lucky's is now. There is the bridge Tavern Restaurant. There's Lucky's.
But at one time, it was a bait shop there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that was.
If you go back one slide, you can see the bait shop.
Bait shop was right here. Yeah.
Yep.
And there's all the boats that you could rent. Doesn't look like the. Is that the Shamrock? Must be.
Yeah.
Or Fisherman's Cove it was called probably by then.
Fisherman's Cove, yeah, Tiki bar.
What happened to that bar?
Which one?
The Shamrock.
The Shamrock.
Oh, they tore it down.
Yeah, it was Butter's Edge and they,
He was Fisherman's Cove for a while.
Butter's Edge, it was called at the end,
Fisherman's
and
Cove,
Oh.
kind of went bankrupt and they developed it.
Weird bakery. Yeah. So that was that little building I showed you a few pictures ago. And then that's just the bridge, which is owned by a lot of different people. Joe Ryan, Lowell Brownrigg, Red. You know, what was Red's last name?
Lindgren.
Lindgren, right. It's Lucky's, and then this is how it looked way back when, right where all that. That was a Brownrigg farm on that side. Then there was a house there for a while, like Dennis Fisk and his family grew up in that house. Yeah, I just took this one like a few days ago. And there's that old truck again. Probably going to Baraboo. That's my dad's father, Silas, and that's John William Brownrigg. They call him Uncle Willie to differentiate because his dad was John Brownrigg that started the mill. That's roughly there. There's the school. And there's the school.
What was the last year of the school?
I don't know. I was talking to Joni Order, said that she went to school here, and that would have been in the 60s.
So did,
Yeah. I don't know when they.
When they closed it,
It's the early 60s.
Early 60s?
The sign says 59.
yeah, so that when Roger was in one of the last classes there too.
That was
When they
a
got the buses to be.
pretty small class there, it looks
But
like.
before that, there were no buses.
That one I probably took about, I don't know, 15 years ago. It kind of looks the same, the swing set's gone now.
Well, the back part was built on, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
It was there another one.
That's before the addition, but the other one had the addition.
When, yeah, well, I have no idea when that would have
It was
happened.
in the 80s.
80s?
The kitchen and bathrooms were put in.
Okay.
And the tower was not there either. The tower came, I don't know, 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
Was it there? Ah, yeah, you're right.
Another chimney only.
Yeah. You should be doing this.
No, I just happen to know that because when the tower was put on, the Okee Association, I think, paid for the materials, and the high school class, industrial arts, built it.
Oh, okay.
And what year was that?
I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, maybe?
It's more than that.
More than that, I think?
My album, I don't have a picture of that.
Well, we're only here 30, so it was, that's not, but anyway.
So after the school was closed, they built the bell tower to call the kids to school.
You betcha.
So this was one of my dad's favorite pictures. He used to go on and on about the four means of transportation. Like you got the horse-drawn wagon, and you got a train barreling down towards Okee, and you got a Model T pickup, it looks like. And he said, well, what's the fourth one? Well, that guy there, he's walking.
2 feet.
So he got me started in this, try to find the same exact spot and then take a modern day picture of it. So he did this in 1977.
Oh, it's a gas station.
Oh yeah, it's been a lot of different things.
They didn't have it, you didn't really. That's on the corner.
This one looks like one of the really early pictures.
Yep,
I think the next one is Summers. Yeah, this one says J.W. Summers General Store.
John Summers.
Post office.
Yeah,
I used to go help Madeline in the store.
and you got gas pumps
So
for.
was John her husband?
No, that was her dad.
Her dad. Madeline was never married, right?
No, Madeline never married.
She married.
She
Yeah. Now it all comes out.
They would have got married after they were 78.
Yes, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Well, I remember these two, Patsy Waters and John Davis.
Yes.
Got married and they ran
Talks about it, yeah. She should be here. She could tell you all about all of it.
PJs. And that's one I took, like I said, 10 years ago.
Wasn't there a dance hall upstairs?
Yes,
I don't know.
and
I
my
don't know.
son still has the original, my folks bought when they closed up when Madeline sold the store, they closed up the ballroom upstairs, which people used to come on the weekends and horseback and stuff for dances. But there were two beautiful kerosene lamps, huge kerosene lamps hanging from the ceiling. And my mom and dad bought those, and my son still has those, and he had them in his house. And he still owns them, so, very cool.
So, yeah, so I'm gonna end up on Gibraltar. I took a picture of Gibraltar a couple years ago, put it on Facebook, and a guy commented that before long you won't be able to see the rock face. The trees are getting so tall. And so this is from a postcard around 1978 or so, roughly 50 years ago. So you compare it to how it looks now. And yeah, that's right.
Yeah, sure, getting close. Yeah.
But I hope they don't do anything to those trees though. I like all those big trees up there. And this was, I don't know when this was taken. It was after the dam, obviously, because there's the lake. So I went up there, tried to find this spot, which I didn't have much luck at. I just kind of faked it and took this. But this next one, this is one of the glass plate negatives, so you're talking 1900 to 1910 probably. And all this, young people up on Gibraltar, nothing ever changes there either. But I went up there to try to find the exact spot, and I was amazed that I was able to find that exact spot. The rock, I went by the rocks first. Those rocks, of course, they're never going to change, but I was amazed at how much that cedar tree hasn't changed much at all either. In well over 100 years, it's a little bit bigger, but not much.
Can you go back one more time?
Wow. Yeah. There's a crack in the road.
I was up there one day, and there was a guy from UW who studies, trees, whatever. He said, I think those are white cedars. He said, yeah, they grow really slow. So some of these trees up here are easily 200, could be 300 years old, some of these cedars up here. And that, I believe, might be the end. Yeah, there's Washington, D.C. That's